Right, greetings everyone. Very warm welcome to you to this next in the series of the Coffee with Karl. I'm joined today by a long-time friend, a guy called Mark Billage. Say hello, Mark.
Hi, everybody.
Can you tell us what you're doing in your business at the moment, Mark, please?
Well, I thought just because it's a massive crisis at the moment that I'd start a new business. I thought this was an ideal time to do it. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
So what's the name of your business?
So the name of the business is Smart Culture Limited.
Yeah.
And what do I do?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So my passion is about people potential. So we work 9 to 5, lots of jobs. Many people I speak to don't seem to enjoy their jobs or enjoy a great culture at work. So my passion is really to help people create great culture in their organizations. Most people are part of teams that don't perform to their potential, and actually through following a few simple tools, it's possible to liberate people into more high performing culture. So that's my passion. But all that's down to leadership. So I've been a student of leadership for about 30 years now, and been a leader myself of an organization. So we just want to have a culture that encourages people to thrive, to empower them, to enable them, and to enjoy what they do.
Brilliant. Okay, we're going to dig deep into that in a minute. For those people who know me, then you know what I do. But for those people watching this video who don't, then my philosophy in my business is all about dream it, plan it, live it. And it's really about making a difference in people's lives, because the fact is that most people aim at nothing and hit it with tremendous accuracy. So what I do as a published author, chartered wealth manager, that's name, rank and serial number out the way, is help people to make smart choices with their money. But ultimately, my philosophy is very much about that money is a means to an end. You know, money is just an energy. It allows us to do stuff, doesn't it? Good or bad. And I know you'll relate to this, Mark, because you know, in a minute you can explain your history. But Mark actually used to be an independent financial advisor many years ago. In fact, I had a little hand in sort of helping you along that journey, didn't I?
Yeah.
So, you know, what we try to do is help people live a life of purpose, and that's one of the reasons why we're running this kind of Coffee with Karl series at the moment, is because, you know, some people out there are, you know, feeling positive, some people are feeling negative, some are feeling apathetic, and I've just interviewed a number of people that I really admire and respect, and Mark's absolutely one of those people, to try and give you a little bit of hope, a little bit of optimism for the future. So without further ado, Mark, could you give us a little bit of a potted history of what you've done throughout the journey of your life, please?
Yeah. So ended up studying business in Newcastle upon Tyne. Great time there. Met my wife, and from there went into youth work. That was when I didn't have so much grey hair, and yeah, I really enjoyed that. Worked in that for about 4 or 5 years. And then, as you know, Karl joined the financial services industry, which is where we met a few small years ago. And
30 years ago now, that was, my friend.
nearly 30 years, yeah. When we were both a bit younger. So yeah, really enjoyed that time. Obviously moved into different places, but for 14 years worked in the financial services industry, set up 3 companies during that time. And then we kind of took a bit of a left turn, and we ended up as a family living in India for 5 years, which was an amazing experience. Amazing country, people everywhere, different pace of life. Ended up leading a church at that time, teaching leadership, teaching communication to all sorts of different people all over southern India. Really good time. Came back from there and ended up working in a charity, which is a faith-based charity working with people in the Arab world.
Right.
And ended up leading that organization for the last 7 years, building a great team of people, really trying to put into practice what I feel about in terms of putting people first and adding value, creating space for people to fulfill their potential. And that was great. And then no reason to leave particularly. I wasn't shoved out the door, wasn't feeling like I needed to leave, but at the same time felt that there was still more that I wanted to do in the business space. So finished there at the end of January, and here we are in a new venture, and looking forward to what might happen.
Brilliant. And then just in case anyone is doubting the authenticity in terms of how long Mark and I have actually sort of known each other, I'm trying to do a screen share here, but it's not actually sort of coming up on the screen. But I'll do it at the end. It's quite ironic, really, because I've got a photograph, Mark, here, which is from many years ago. And do you remember a time of sailing out of a place down here in South Devon called Dartmouth?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So we rocked up thinking that we were going to go on this nice little sort of corporate jolly of perhaps drinking Pimm's and lemonade, or maybe afternoon tea or something or other up the River Dart to Totnes or whatever. And we had this full blown briefing, didn't we, from this skipper, and laughing and saying, "Goodness me, this is all a bit serious." He goes, "Where do you think we're going to, Sunshine?" And I said, "Well, we're just going up the river, aren't we, for a little tootle?" He said, "Boys, we're going out to sea." That was interesting, wasn't it? How that kind of unfolded in terms of how the dynamics of a team can actually sort of work, which is quite a nice segue. So tell us about your new business venture and in a bit more detail on what you're actually sort of planning to do there.
Yeah, so basically, what I'm trying to do is to make it possible for organizations to do better at what they do. Obviously organizations come together for a purpose, teams come together for a purpose. The evidence is there, the experience is there to say that most teams are running at about 60% of their potential. And, that's tragedy, because you come together to do this thing and you obviously want to do it well, I assume. But often not all the voices are being heard around the table.
Right.
People do different things. They have different personalities. They give way to others. They're still thinking about what they're about to say. Others are more dominant voices on the team. But if a leader can create a culture whereby people are empowered to speak, can make their significant contribution, people can appreciate what they're bringing, then that's what I'm about helping people understand themselves and each other, so that the whole result is better, bigger, and I guess at the same time people are just feeling better in themselves about what they're doing. So I think it's about creating high performance teams using leadership tools and also team development tools.
Okay, so I mean, I'm just curious. I mean, in terms of where we are in the world right now, we've got this kind of huge pandemic, and stress and pressure and anxiety is rife. I mean, what do you see the biggest challenges are for people right now, and what are the solutions, I guess?
Okay, well, I think the first thing to say is that I'm no different to anybody else. I mean, this is a huge thing, and I wouldn't want to minimise the impact of what's happened. We find ourselves, locked down for long periods of time, doing different things. Life has completely changed, but I do listen to what people are saying, and I understand that people are fearful, and I don't want to minimise that. But the question I have is, well, what do you do after if your initial reaction is, my goodness, what are we going to do? Why has this happened to me? That's an understandable reaction, but what's your second question? And I think the concern I have is that people start to think differently about their circumstances. The concern I have is that, with all the things you can't control, and there are lots at the moment, but that's always been the case, and maybe this has brought that into focus, is what can I do to myself? The thing I can manage is me. What do I think about? What do I feed? What can I do in this time? And I've been really overindulging myself, I guess, in some respects, in terms of developing myself. There are lots of books around me at the moment. Fortunately, you can't see everything that's untidy in my office. But just to say, people can learn. Einstein said, it's not until we get to the middle of a crisis and where we see the opportunities. And that's true. Everybody's trying to figure it out when it first starts. And in some respects, we're still at the beginning of this thing. There's no vaccine yet and all that kind of thing. But what can you be doing to get ready? People are also saying they would like to get back to normal. And I would like to challenge that view. I don't think there is. I think the normal has changed.
Okay.
People will prefer to work remotely sometimes. Education completely changed. Seems like universities may not go back until next year. So doing an entire academic year online, that's a massive pivot in such a short time. So I think change is sometimes, creates that uncertainty. Some people thrive on change, others do not, and I understand that. But the fact is that change is here, and the question is, how are we going to do that? So I think the biggest concern I have is how is people's mental well-being, and I think that's down to the kind of questions you're asking yourself. What are you talking to yourself about? What are you listening to? Who are you listening to? And are you positioning yourself to take advantage of the opportunities as they arise?
Some really, really valuable comments mentioned there, Mark, and absolutely 100% on point with all of those. For anyone who knows me, I'm a trained coach, but B, my wife is Dr. Karl Lehmann, and she's a clinical psychologist by background. And, I can remember actually, partway through this lockdown, whereby I myself was devouring the news like some kind of, it was in some like insatiable desire to, get read and understand all the stuff that was out there. And it was natural to, for people like ourselves to kind of equip ourselves with information so that we can then start making informed choices.
Yeah.
But I remember one evening coming in where Sarah came in from work, she'd done a 14-hour day. We came back from the hospital and sort of, I was going, look at this, Sarah, this is the situation. Look at this, Sarah. And she just went, Karl, stop.
Yep.
Just stop. This is not serving you well. This is not helping you. It's not helping me. It's not helping our family. And in turn, it will not help your clients, because that will go on in your demeanor. That will be within your kind of spirituality, I guess. And she kind of said something to me which kind of resonated, and I kind of knew it anyway, but it's one of those things.
Yeah.
We forget stuff, don't we, Mark? And she talked about what we call the kind of internal locus of control and the external locus of control. And for anybody who's not familiar with that concept, is basically the external locus of control is all the stuff that's out there, that's happening. We can't do anything to control it, so actually, you can't do anything about that. That's the noise. The internal locus of control, and I call it the kind of top few inches here, it's basically what's going on in your head.
Yeah.
That we can control, that we can choose how we react. So, bearing in mind everything you've just said, I mean,
Yeah.
we're all with you, it's a challenging time. And I agree with you. I think it's probably going to be around for a lot longer than actually sort of a lot of people think. There's a huge blame culture at the moment, which, I really struggle with, where people are pointing the finger at the government. And, as we said in the call prior to just jumping on and recording this, is when you're pointing the finger, one needs to remember that these three fingers are actually pointing directly back at you.
Yeah.
So what can you do? So given your wealth of experience of dealing with, sort of clients as a financial advisor, a missionary, a church leader, a leader of a, international organization, and now working in culture, what are the tips? What are the strategies? What are the plug and play things that people can actually use right here, right now, and it make a difference in their lives?
Yeah. Well, that's thanks. No pressure on that one then. So, well, I think actually it's a very simple question. What can I do right now? What is the next thing I can do? I mean, I always have this kind of funny picture in my mind. Is the question is, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is one bite at a time.
Yeah.
And you can't. There's so much out there. I mean, we live in an age before the pandemic as well of masses of amounts of information. And I think one of the problems we have is, how do we actually filter that? How do we prioritize it? What do we listen to? And I think that's all a big issue of trust. And I think we need to trust, the people that we listen to. We need to listen to those that we know who in the past have helped us. You can't get through this without the social, the familial, the friendship kind of support that you need. And obviously some people are locked down on their own, and that's difficult, but there is technology obviously that are available. Perhaps even go and have a socially distanced coffee in the park or something like that. Do the things that you need to actually help with your mental well-being. But I think the question I'm asking myself is, what can I do today that will help me prepare for tomorrow. Because tomorrow's there. I saw a funny thing the other day, whereby somebody saying, well, I guess all guys who set their plans in 2015 for their 5-year goal as to where they would be were way off then, weren't they? And I think it's true. Yeah, you can plan, but think about what you can do today. What can I do today to prepare myself mentally and physically? I mean, the very fact is that fear, stress, has a physical repercussion in our bodies.
Sure.
So I'm making sure I'm getting enough sleep at the moment, taking some exercise, doing the things that just keeping my routine going. Getting up, getting dressed in the morning. There are some things that are very seem very mundane, but actually are very helpful in helping us to position ourselves. Getting myself mentally prepared to sit at my desk and do some work. And I've had to pivot. I'm more of a face-to-face guy. I enjoy doing that kind of thing, but now I'm doing an online training course, funny enough, in resilience, because I think resilience is a big issue at the moment. So I think the things that you can do are, first of all, do what you can do today. The second thing is be thankful for what you have. I think having an attitude of gratitude really does help in terms of, it's kind of, for me, it's like the soil of opportunities, where when opportunities hit a thankful heart or a grateful heart, I think sometimes you're just kind of positioned to do more with them, because you've just got that different perspective. And I think that's the other thing, is that work on your mindset, work on your worldview. I mean, I've got a world map behind me. And part of that is because I'm interested in what's going on globally. But also, we are in a certain situation here. Obviously, others are in the situation where they're not being able to get any food or anything like that. But think about how you view the world. You can change your view. And that's about the questions you're asking yourself. So what can I learn about what's going on today? What am I thankful for? What are the things that I can be preparing myself for? What could I learn from different books or what? There's such a plethora of webinars. I would encourage you to do something in the line of, what do I actually want to do? Now, I don't particularly want to learn how to knit or sew or anything like that right now. But I know you can do that kind of thing. But what is it? I'm interested in leadership. I'm interested in, if you don't know where you're going, then everything has equal value, and that just becomes overwhelming. So decide where you want to go, and think about what you need to put inside you, I guess, to help you become more of an expert in that area. So it's a great opportunity at the moment to kind of change things a bit, and take the time with family, with friends, particularly with family. If you're locked down with them, what a great time to spend time with them and do some things you haven't done for a long time.
Yeah, that's a great point, and something just leapt into my brain as you were talking there, and I can't remember who said this to me once, but the philosophy is thinking can become negative, whereas action is always positive.
Yep.
And sometimes we live in I want to unpeel this one a little bit, actually, Mark, because the person that we have the most conversation with is this internal voice, isn't it, in here? And actually, I remember talking to Sarah about this. Isn't it the case that actually our kind of conscious thoughts that we kind of think, we can actually sort of direct those? But actually, I was talking to her once about how our self-talk, that kind of little voice inside your head, can actually kind of be negative. It can remind you of all the kind of stuff that you haven't done and all the rest of it. And I go, why does this little voice inside your head? And she goes, well, there's a reason for that. It's basically, to keep you alive. If you go back to like days of old when we're in caves and the rest of it, it's all about it's about risk management. But actually, with your conscious thinking and the way we've developed as human beings, we can now challenge that. So, I mean, I talk about a philosophy about guarding your hearts and, filling your mind with good stuff. And like I just said, thinking can become negative, whereas action is always positive. And what are the little baby steps that people can do right now to kind of, guard their hearts, to fill their minds with positive stuff so that they can start getting better outcomes in terms of what they're doing?
Yeah, well, I think, again, it comes down to, what are you reading? What are you looking at? There's all sorts of, I'm sure Netflix and everything else is going great guns at the moment, lots of volume, but actually it's not, most of what's on there is not that helpful. I mean, it's helpful kind of for a bit of relaxation, but it's not something you want to fill your life with.
Sure.
And I think with self-talk, one of the things that I would encourage you to do is to make your thinking visible, to actually take the thought that you're having, and put it down on a piece of paper, write it down, and then ask a very simple question: is it true?
Mm-hmm.
Is it true? And just asking that question can actually say, well, is it true in every situation? Just go deep into it. There are certain things that are true. We're not sure when we're going to get a vaccine. We're not sure how we will come out of lockdown at this point. There are all sorts of things that are true. But there are also ways in which you can think about them. I mean, like you say about the government and everything else, it's very difficult for us to kind of work out how we would have done it. You can't run two sort of parallel experiments. If we'd done this, this would be the case. Or we are where we are.
Yeah.
And I think making your thinking visible, almost taking captive your thoughts in one sense.
Yeah.
I have to do this every day. I mean, I personally am a man of faith, as you know, and I read the Bible every day because, and there's tons of wisdom in that. I mean, even if you don't believe in what's in there, I would encourage you to read some of the proverbs in there. They're absolutely amazing. Just real great insight into humanity and into the way that we think.
Mm.
And it says in Proverbs, as a man thinks in his heart, so he is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, as we think, as we speak, those are like a track that we use to run on. And so say something different. If that's not heading to where you want to be, consciously decide to change the program, change the speech. And to be honest, it's practice makes perfect. It's a habit that you develop. And it's the habits I do today that will make me the person I will be tomorrow. So just think about the thing. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just interrupting you. Sorry, Mark. I'm glad you brought out the point there about habits. In fact, I was just looking on my desk to this is a book. Bear with. This book I'm reading at the moment is this guy here, Feel Better in 5. And the one thing that he goes on about here is that most of what we do is all about habit driven. So as human beings, we just kind of, we get up in the morning, we put the kettle on, we make a coffee, and if you can change those habits, just a little change here or there, the kind of little compounding effects of that, I should know the effects of compounding of financial, it just makes a huge difference overall in your life, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of business owners and what they're facing right now, and obviously sort of, they're struggling potentially with some teams remotely and things like that. Have you got any kind of, stuff you want to comment on in terms of like how business owners might want to work going forward?
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, there's already stuff coming through in terms of legislation, in terms of flexible working. And I think flexible working is just going to increase. And it has to be a really good reason not to do it, doesn't it? And, businesses are becoming more decentralized, thinking about remote teams, you might say, well, okay, do we need an office? Do we need that? I mean, I think one of the questions that will be coming out of this pandemic is, do I need to fly to wherever and have this business meeting? I mean, I think from a relationship building point of view, definitely, first couple of meetings are going to need to be face to face. You need to see the whites of somebody's eyes, don't you? But I think beyond that, will companies start to think, well, actually, do we need to spend, £6,000 or £7,000, send somebody over to go and talk to somebody face to face? So I think there are some different opportunities, particularly as the technology is improved, security is improving, all of that kind of thing. But I think it's just, keeping your eye on, what is it you're in business for? What's your why? Why are you doing what you do? That's not changing. It may be that, you've got some changes in circumstances in the way that you process and operate as a business. It may have gone virtual, and it may be that some of that stays. But, your purpose, the direction of your business, the reason you started the business maybe hasn't changed. And I think sometimes we come across this detour sign in the middle of the road. There's a big diversion now. You can't go down the road that you used to do. And I was listening to our friend John Maxwell the other day, and he was saying, well, take the detour tour. sometimes we think, oh, crumbs, I can't get to where I want to be. I want to go down that road. It's familiar. I know what I'm doing, all that kind of thing. Well, now you can't go down there. Take a detour, see what the detour, take note of what's going on. You might find some things that actually make your business better, help you to do it in less time with less money, all sorts of different things. But I think observation, because I think fear closes down our senses.
Yeah.
It closes down our sight. We can't see properly. So get that under control. This too shall pass. We know that, don't we? We had a massive flu pandemic in 1918, killed millions of people.
Yeah.
We've been through 2 world wars. We've been through the 2008 financial crash, went through the dot-com thing. All these things passed. This too will pass.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is to keep the main thing. What are you doing? What are the key components? What about you look after your people as much as you can, because they're your best resource, and encourage them as you're moving towards. Be real with them. Say, be authentic. Yeah, this is a difficult time that we're in, but this I know. These are the things I know about what we're doing. So it's those kind of things I think would help.
That's some great points there. And as you've been talking, I've been jotting down things and highlighting in yellow, and little things have lifted off the page to me. I mean, what's the best piece of advice that you can give to anyone in business or working with teams, given the situation right now? I mean, I know you say fill your mind with good stuff, but sometimes people need something a little bit more than that. They need something a little bit more than just reading a book or jumping on a webinar. I mean, for me, for example, one of the things I've struggled with personally is overwhelm. The organisation that my practice is linked to, been superb. They've given us so much resources for me as a business owner, for my team working around me, and all the rest of it. But it's being able to kind of discern between the valuable and the rest.
Yeah.
And I think it's only now that I've actually got that locked down, where I'm going, right, okay, I know what I need to do. Everything else can have to wait, because this is where I am turning up. I can't do everything, so this is where I'm turning up. So, if people want to reach out to you and get you to kind of work in their organization, how would they go about doing that, Mark?
Well, as I said, we're pretty brand new, so the website still is nearly ready, but not quite. But you can get hold of me on mark@smartculture.uk. You can email me on that. So that's mark@smartculture.uk. I mean, that's the best way probably of getting hold of me at the moment.
Awesome. And also, obviously, this is going out on LinkedIn amongst other platforms,
yes.
So people can connect with you also.
They can, yeah. I'm on LinkedIn. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Brilliant. I mean, is there anything else that you think we should be actually sort of talking about? Anything that I've missed?
Yeah, I think, one of the big things for me is keeping your hope, keeping hope alive. I think when people look at, resilience, for instance, they say that optimism is a great thing, and it is, but it needs to be a realistic optimism. In Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, he talks to Admiral Jim Stockdale, and he said, and he was one of the guys who was incarcerated in the Vietnam War, and he said, how did you, survive? What was the kind of thing? And he said, well, the people who didn't survive are the optimists. The optimists said, we'll be out by next week, or be out by next Christmas, or by Easter, whatever. And he said, I think they just died of a broken heart. We have to have our hope needs to be realistic. The kind of now some people have belief and faith, and they have hope in a person in that sense. But we need to have hope. I think we have to keep reminding ourselves that these things will pass. And I think with the view in mind of, where do you want to be when this thing finishes? Do you still want to be, obviously you want to be standing, you'd like your business to still be going. I'm sure people are doing as much as they can to take advantage of the grants and things like that are available through the government. But if you have other people that you talk to, then I would, people, trusted friends, trusted advisors, then I would make sure that you connect with them regularly, because we have a tendency to make stuff up. When I was a financial advisor, and you get that, post-it note in your that so and so has made a phone call, please contact them, and you're thinking, oh goody. Think, but and I used to like leave those calls to the end of the day, and by that stage, this little mouse was the size of an elephant, and I'd encourage you, deal with the things that you need to deal with that cause that kind of thing. Deal with them quickly. Most of the time it's not a problem.
Yeah.
But I think talking to people, like Karl and I talk to each other regularly because we just need to encourage each other.
Yeah.
And builds hope, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
You think, oh yeah, I could do that. And I think there's wisdom in many counselors, as somebody once said.
Yeah, great phrase that is. And in fact, yesterday I wrote a little blog item, and it was absolutely on that point. It was saying, we become, is it Jim Rohn who said this? We become the 5 people or the 6 people that we spend the most time with. So I don't know quite what it means for me, because I spend most of my time with a doctor in clinical psychology and a golden retriever. So you can use from that what you will. But no, joking apart, I have a mastermind group that I go to. Not physically at the moment, but the people that sit around that table are phenomenal. We share common traits, and then when that feeds me, because then when I'm sort of dealing with other people who are not as resilient or as strong, whatever you want to call it, I've got something in the fuel tank to be able to give them. And I think sometimes as the leader that can be quite hard, can't it? I know that leading my own team, I've turned up to some of the team meetings, and Harry, Dawn, and other people watching this, sort of now might think, well, we never knew this, but I'm turning up and I'm thinking, golly, how the hell am I going to bring the energy here? Because Zoom meetings can actually be draining, can't you? I mean,
Yes.
I'm a pretty high energy guy, but by 3:30 in the afternoon, I'm thinking, my goodness me, I haven't got that same body language connection with somebody to kind of feel upbeat and like ready to go and punch the next challenge square in the mouth sort of thing.
Yeah.
But actually, somewhere I just normally close my eyes and I just do a little bit of, meditation and concentrate on something that's important to me. And then from somewhere within, something just comes. And, sometimes you just got to turn everything down. You've got to still the world and just say, I'm not listening to that. I'm not listening to that. Let's get on with that. I think you've brought out some fantastic messages. Have you got any more? Because I'm loving all these quotes that you've given us. Optimistic. They're the ones that didn't survive. Absolutely, that struck a chord with me. That hope being realistic. So, what else have you got on your pad there, Mark? You must have other stuff.
Well, you kind of spark off each other, don't you? I mean, I think the thing to do is to kind of think. Being overwhelmed, I think, is there's just so many calls on you. You might be a parent or whatever. You've got different roles in life, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I think it's just about just give yourself a break. I think sometimes we just need to say, well, actually, this is really difficult, and what can I do just to kind of move forward? Yeah. And I think it's that relentless pursuit of forward motion, even if it's gradual, that really helps us. That we think, okay, bit by bit, what can I do? Yeah. And it doesn't need to be much of a thing, but actually, today I'm going to just do this. It's realistic. It's the SMART goal kind of thing, isn't it? The kind of specific, measurable, achievable type thing. But don't worry if you don't get there. It's that kind of also kind of let yourself off type thing. I think we have sorry, go on.
Sorry, just interjecting with that. I mean, I wrote a chapter in the book about SMART goals, and I kind of did it. And for most people, it's kind of really helpful. But just sharing something, with people that for me, it kind of works to a point. But actually, I mean, you and I both worked in an organisation. We won't mention the person's name, but the gentleman concerned was an international authority in terms of public speaking. He was a great inspirational, motivational kind of a guy. And he was a philosopher about having big, scary goals, and you get it out there. But as you know, because we worked together at the time, is, one of those things was I struggle with that, because each year when we got to the end of the year, it just kept reminding me of all the stuff I hadn't done. Yeah. And actually it became negative, it became destructive. And I thought, gosh, how do I deal with this? I'd done a coaching qualification, I'm married to somebody who knows about the mind sort of thing. What do I do about this? But it was actually one of my colleagues within an organization called St. James's Place who wrote another book, and he published it in America first. But he talked about having exact and challenging daily standards. And the philosophy behind this was, is, you know, to have that big goal out there can almost be too intimidating for some.
Yeah.
Some people thrive on it, don't they? They go, come on, let's go, we're off. But for like others, it can be too intimidating. So as you said earlier, it's about that elephant, you know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So for me, what I try to do is have challenging daily standards, challenging daily habits that I try, well, standards that I try and turn into habits, so that, you know, we can only control what we can control. And if we control what we're doing, then the outputs will just take care of themselves, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, you know, for me, that's been much more easier to manage. Even in times like this, I'm thinking, right, there's all of this stuff going on out there. And right now, you know, if you're in healthcare or if you're in the finance, it's an absolute, you know, storm. You're in the eye of the storm, aren't you? Well, in my household, I'm in finance, my wife's in healthcare. So, you know, all of these people are out there painting their shed for the third time because they've got nothing else to do. We haven't even had time to paint our shed for the first time yet. And actually, one of the things we feel guilty about is actually not spending more time with our son.
Yeah, sure.
Because he's 12 years old, but he's actually been independently learning. So that's a challenge for us. And, you know, we're doing stuff to kind of correct that. So, you know, we're not perfect in this regard. But one of the things is we've reflected and think, right, what can we do? You know, what are the little baby steps that we can do each and every day to make sure that we're making movable progress towards where we want to be, not just to survive, but ultimately to thrive when we come out of this. And I love your philosophy that this too will pass.
Yeah.
Anything else that you'd like to share, my friend? You must. Have we drained you dry, or you got other stuff that you want to just kind of?
No, I think you're right. I think also to kind of add to what you're saying about SMART goals, and I know that you and I had conversations about all of that at the time, but I think it comes back down to, yes, set those goals, and when you know the goal you're setting, it needs to be something you want. You know, is that something you know, when you get there, to celebrate the milestone, to say, you know,
for real,
I'm grateful for being here, content, if you like. You know, there's obviously lots of areas of my life I'm not kind of necessarily satisfied with, but I want to, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, as you look at me now, I'm really looking forward to a good haircut. But but I think in terms of setting goals, you know, you can set goals in different areas, can't you? About, you know, your physical health, your family, those kinds of things. There's different things that we want to do. You know, whatever it is, make sure that it's about you. You know, because my goals are great for me, but not great for you. And then to say, well, okay, yeah, when I get to those things, yeah, brilliant. And, you know, there is, you know, good goals setting, you know, they do amazing things, you know, and I know that I've hit targets I didn't think possible, just because I thought, well, yeah, when I set that goal, that was what I really wanted to do. And you can't figure out how it got there, but you managed to do it, because your brain is always looking for ways in which to meet the goal that you set. You know, you can see that quite easily when you say, oh, I'm going to buy a new car, and you're going to say, oh, I want to buy a Volvo, for instance. No, not that I bought a Volvo, but anyway, you know, a blue Volvo. And every time, you know, every turn you see a blue Volvo, and suddenly they're just everywhere, because your brain's actively looking to fulfill your, you know, desires. So I think set what you want to do, but be satisfied, you know, be content when you get there, and say, oh, okay, how am I going to celebrate that? You know, and I think that's a better, more sustainable way of living.
Yeah, I'm not so good at doing the celebration thing unless it's something big. I mean, I got a Michael Hyatt planner here on my desk, which, you know, he's a big fan of actually saying, you know, celebrating that success. And indeed, Sarah, you know, says it all the time. The amount of times, you know, I've passed exams in the past, and I kind of almost sweep it on under the carpet and think, right, I'll do the next one now. And like Sarah goes, no, we have to go out for a meal or do something that's meaningful to you, that we actually kind of, you know, say yes. Yeah. So it's important to do that, isn't it? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. So for you, it might just be painting the shed. You know, I mean,
I'm not hot on DIY. It has to be. I'd rather pay somebody to do it, and, you know, spend more time on my paddleboard or on my bike or something or other.
Absolutely.
So, any other bits and pieces you want to sort of cover off, Mark? I'm mindful we've covered a lot of ground today, but if there's any other stuff there that you want to bring out, I'd love to hear it, because I think this has been an awesome interview, I have to say.
Yeah, great. Well, I think, you know, just take each day as it comes at the moment. Do what you can. If you've got family, spend time with them. Make sure that you've got, you know, prioritizing that. Nobody's ever going to kind of thank you for not spending time with them. And maybe that's a gift that we can take away from this time. So yeah, no, I think that's probably about it.
Okay, well, I've got one final question for you. And the question is, I mean, you and I believe that heaven exists. Okay,
Yeah.
so but the question is, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Well, I think I'd like him to say, you took advantage of the opportunities I sent you. Well done. That's
Good
it.
man. Good man. Great answer there. So, Mark, thanks for joining us today. Just to recap on, you know, a couple of points here which have really resonated with me. You know, have an attitude of gratitude. You know, I think it's very easy to forget, you know, the stuff that we've actually got around us. You know, count our blessings in that regard. Make your thinking visible. If you've got negative self-talk going on in your mind, write it down on paper and ask yourself, is it true? And rediscover what's your why. And if that's something that you need help with, then, you know, reach out to Mark. I'm sure he'll do a quick discovery call with you to help you in that regard. And also just be realistic in terms of your hope, you know, optimist, that kind of, you know, story that you told earlier on where, you know, is the optimist who died. That absolutely floored me, because I think I'm a pretty optimistic kind of guy. But equally, I can see what you're saying. You know, people die of a broken heart, you know, and that's that's quite staggering, really. So I would encourage everybody who's been watching this video, if you feel called in some way about some of the stuff that either Mark or I have been saying, then do reach out. You know, we're happy to have a conversation with you and link in with you. That's part of who we are. You know, the value of your net worth is down to the value of your network at the end of the day. And that's the reason why, you know, we got Mark on the call today. So thanks for sparing the time, Mark. You're an absolute legend. Thanks very much. And look forward to talking to you soon. Take good
Thanks,
care.
Kevin.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.